with more on the battle over the border, the so-called big government shutdown, which is never really a shutdown. South Carolina Senator Lindsey Graham is with us. Senator, it makes my blood boil because this has happened time and again. We have people that didn't respect our laws or our sovereignty come to America, commit more crimes. They're in custody, and then they are literally, like a state like California, they are protected from the laws of the land, and they commit horrific fines.
Right.
Now, is California, are they going to pay the funeral costs? Are they going to pay the college tuition? How do they explain to this 5-month-old little boy that daddy's never coming back again?
Well, these policies make it more likely that terrorists, drug dealers, and criminals can come to America and have safe haven. So you said before, I think Steve is a great guy. He said Democrats are not for border security. Yeah, they are, except when Trump's president. I've seen them in action. They have all voted for $25, $42 billion, you name the number, for border security. They won't give a dime to this president because they want him to fail. Walls work. Trump said, let's make a deal. Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer said, go to hell. We'll see what happens.
You offered a compromise. Now, Democrats also say they care about the DACA kids. What is your compromise?
Compromise is give President the $5 billion we need for wall/border security as a down payment to securing the border. The DACA population, about 700,000, give them work permits, 3-year work permits, so they don't have to worry about getting deported anytime soon. The TPS people who came here years ago from war-torn areas, hurricanes and floods, renew their legal status, no pathway to citizenship, and call it a day. It's called compromise. The president said, let's make a deal. The Democratic response is basically, go to hell. They're going to send a bill from the House to the Senate that has no money for the wall. It's not going to see the light of day. Mitch McConnell's never going to bring a bill onto the floor of the Senate that doesn't have money for the wall. We need the wall. They've all voted for the wall. And the only way we're ever going to get the wall is to fight for it.
This is a battle, to me, worth having, and I know it's inconvenient. By the way, I support all those furloughed employees. I don't want them caught in a political crossfire. They deserve their back pay. It's through no fault of their own that they're not viewed as essential services. But does the president have other options for the wall? For example, why is this not viewed? He's the commander-in-chief. He's in charge of national security of this country. Why couldn't Defense Department funds be used to secure our border to stop the drug trafficking, human trafficking, and even the criminal gangs and the 3,700 terrorists that Steve Scalise mentioned that were caught trying to cross our border? Why is that not a national security Defense Department issue?
You can move some money around, but he'll get sued. There'll be lawsuits in California to stop any effort to have other agencies fund the border, but there's some money you could use for sure. But why should this president have to play that game? Why should Donald Trump have to do that when Democratic presidents and Republican presidents in the past were able to get money to secure the border from Democrats?
Last question.
He shouldn't have to do that.
We're
going to fight.
I support.
I don't know how this movie's going to end, but we're not giving up till we get the money.
If this takes 150 days, I think the Republican Party needs to stand united with the president. I have confidence in you. I don't have confidence in some of your colleagues, but saving lives, stopping drug trafficking and human trafficking is worth the fight. Will the president hold the line? Will he have the Republican support he needs to hold the line?
Well, let me tell you how our government works. Any bill passed from the House has to come to the Senate. It has to get 60 votes. And for it to be signed into law, the president has to sign it. He's not going to sign a bill that doesn't have money for the wall. I tell you exactly how this is going to end. The president is going to challenge the Democrats to compromise, and if they continue to say no, they're going to pay a price with the American people. Most Americans want to do two things. They want to secure our border, and they want to be reasonable to the people like the DACA population. If he gives in now, that's the end of 2019 in terms of him being an effective president. That's probably the end of his presidency. Donald Trump has made a promise to the American people. He's going to secure our border. Every Democrat in the past has voted for border funding. Now they're changing their mind.
It's too important, too many lives at stake, too much danger to the country. Senator, good to see you.
That's
Thanks for
the
being
end
with
of us if we give on this issue as Republicans.
Okay,
I hope Mitt Romney and
help
everybody
your
else
colleagues.
knows
Some of
this
them
is
are pretty
a fight
weak.
worth
Help them
having.
grow a spine, will you? Anyway, thanks for being with us. Happy New
He's
Year.
a good man.
Republican Congressman Buddy Carter, the Georgia lawmaker, is frustrated that it has taken Democrats so long to come to the table after House Republicans passed a bill more than a week ago. Great to have you on the program. Thank you for being with me. First of all, what gets accomplished, in your opinion, at this meeting with the president at the White House later today?
Well, hopefully we can jumpstart the process. I mean, obviously the Democrats have been no-shows. Where have they been? Out in Hawaii or wherever? And the president has wanted to negotiate. He's been in the White House. He's been available. And I think that this is a concerted effort on his part and on the administration's part to get something started.
You know, I do want to ask the question because I try to ask as many Republicans, both Senate and House, this question so we get a full picture. Why didn't this get done before the end of the year and you knew Democrats were going to take over the House?
Well, unfortunately, it didn't get done. However, I would submit that we did our job, particularly in the House with the Republican majority. We sent a bill over to the Senate that included disaster funding, included relief for the disasters, and also included border wall funding. And that would have done it, but it got over to the Senate. Now Chuck Schumer and the Senate Democrats are the ones who are holding it up. So we did our job in the Republican majority in the House.
It sounds like, from what you sent over to the Senate, that there were some yeses in there to Democrats. Why are Democrats then all no?
Well, that's a good question, particularly if you look at the history of this, particularly if you look back to 2006. If you look back just 5 years ago when the Democrats were all over this issue, they were the ones who were funding the wall. They were the ones who were funding security for the border. You know, the number one responsibility of the federal government is to protect our homeland. We have to secure our borders in order to do that. Everyone wants to think that this is just to keep people out, keep illegal immigrants out. Well, what about the drugs that are coming across that border? What about the human trafficking that's happening there, the gang members, and all the other things that are going on there? We have to make sure that our borders are secured. It baffles me that someone doesn't understand that.
Congressman Carter, I want to read from Secretary Nielsen's just talked on the floor, and I call it taking the floor when you cut in on a cabinet meeting video link and you talk as long as she did. She had everybody's attention saying things like, we need a wall to reduce criminal apprehension, drug, narcotic flow, as you're saying too. We need to address poorly written laws. Thousands arrive and exploit loopholes in our laws on a daily basis. Now families and unaccompanied children make up nearly 2/3 of those caught at the border. That is a huge number of children. It's almost Obama-esque. Remember a few summers ago when we had like 90,000 unaccompanied children coming across our border. Speak to some of the issues that Secretary Nielsen is bringing up. Is this a true crisis, and can the president act differently if there's a crisis at our border?
Well, I would submit that it is a true crisis. And, you know, if we secured our borders, if those people who are sending their children up knew that our borders were secure, they weren't going to be able to get in, then they wouldn't take that risk of sending them out with coyotes or with whoever to try to get them into this country. That is a responsibility incumbent upon us. We need to secure our borders so that they don't put these children at risk. And we've seen what's happened. We've had disasters happen, tragedies happen. That is something we need to address as well.
I'm specifically getting to presidential power. Because if there is an emergency at the border, there are some things that the president can do that are quite different than waiting for Congress to get its act together. I'll let you answer that, and then I have another quick follow.
And I would submit that the president should do that, and I would think that this president will do that if he deems it to be a crisis, and certainly if the Secretary of Homeland Security advises him on that, then I suspect he'll listen.
You know, I've been watching some conservatives write about this, and I'm curious about the lingo with the president. You've got the president who has a base that was ignited by the idea of a wall, although we all knew, because he would explain it every time, that it was a wall system, that you'd have some places that you couldn't actually put a physical structure. You'd reinforce that with personnel, Border Patrol, ICE, whatever. But does the word wall box you in with Democrats? Should you call it something else? And I know some of them on Twitter are making fun of a slat system, but it is what it is. That was one of the companies that submitted, and we knew early on the president liked that slat system. Do you call it something else?
Well, I do. I think you're right. I think the semantics are important, and certainly border security. I've been to the border. I've seen it firsthand. As a member of the Homeland Security Committee, my first session up here, I had the opportunity to visit. I've seen the rugged terrain in Arizona. I've seen the winding, shallow river in the Rio Grande in Texas. I've also seen where a wall works. But it's all about border security. It's all about technology, boots on the ground, a combination of different things to secure our borders.
Congressman Buddy Carter of the great state of Georgia. I'm a peach. I don't know if you knew that. Thank you for being on the program. Appreciate it.